the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think are wonderful, really top-notch. The first one is divorce attorney Catherine Miller, who is the founder of Miller Law Group in New York. I've known Catherine for about 5 years now. I was a guest on her podcast, which is called Divorce Dialogues. And I remember at the time, I was like, I don't know any other divorce attorneys who have their own podcast. It made me realize just how passionate Catherine is to offer her time and expertise at no charge to listeners across the country. Catherine mediates all of her cases. She is not a litigator. So if you want a really good divorce outcome and you want it to be peaceful and have a good co-parenting relationship, this is the way to go. If you want to learn more, you can find her at miller-law.com. The other trusted divorce professional I want to tell you about is divorce mediator Eric Feig. Eric is extremely family focused. He's a veteran attorney turned mediator, and he practices mediation in divorce, business disputes, and elder care issues. Eric is also a father in a neurodiverse family, and because of that, he has a strong commitment to working with parents of neurodiverse and special needs children. He's actually a disability-informed professional, which is a credential for that as well. I really trust Eric. He's so professional. He's extremely calm and reasonable, and I would highly recommend him. If you want to learn more, you can find him at feigmediationgroup.com. And you can find both Eric and Catherine in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. So I get a lot of emails from women who will say things to me like, my community is not happy with me getting divorced. My church, my parents, they're saying that this is a sin. I shouldn't be getting divorced. And God is not okay with this. And marriage is till death do us part. And so I want to address that today because my guest wrote an article about the shame and guilt and embarrassment that goes along with divorce. And I kind of think these are interrelated. But then we have a lot more stuff to talk about today. This is going to be a great episode. I want to get into how to create what you want for your future and what is a T-pause. So these are our three topics we're covering. And my guest is Michelle Heffron. Michelle is a divorce coach and a former corporate executive, really successful, and then decided to become a coach a few years ago and is doing fantastic. Michelle is also divorced herself. She's a mom. So, hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jackie. So nice to see you.
Always nice to see you. And I want my listeners to know that all three topics, well, I wrote an article called Is Divorce a Sin? But the other two, the how to create what you want for your future and what is a T-pause, these are articles that Michelle has written. So these are really your ideas, Michelle. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Well, I'm always happy to talk with you, Jackie. It's always such a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, let's start out with the fact that I just told my listeners that I get a lot of these emails, and you wrote something similar about how people have all this guilt and shame that goes along with divorce. And why, what advice do you have for somebody who says, I feel really guilty, I feel shameful for getting divorced?
That's like opening up a huge huge, huge box, because everybody's comes to the table, Jackie, with their own feelings, their own community. What are they learning in their lives? So it's all over the board. So advice, I would say, really, because so many of the people and the people talking at you are very well-meaning, for sure, they do not know what is in your heart and what you've actually been experiencing in this. And so that's where I feel like I come in, or, really good, a transformational life or divorce coach who can really start to see what's going on for you and understanding what do you need. Because when you talk about shame, sometimes some people feel great deal of shame because they've waited so long to do something about the situation. Like, they think, why did I wait so long? And then there's the guilt about what you were talking about, in our church communities or religious communities and things like that, or even in some of our family, units. It's like, well, I'm the only person in my family who's ever been divorced. I get that
Yes.
too,
I
right?
hear that a lot.
I do
Mhm.
too. And and everybody's like, he just seemed like such a great guy, or what was wrong with her? And those are big questions that's kind of nobody else's business, but we feel compelled to just pull all that stuff out there. And this is where I think that, sometimes I'll work with clients sometimes for a year before they're even ready to say they're ready for a divorce, even though they know that that's what they have to do, because it takes some time to dismantle those old beliefs, and you have to allow yourself to go there. That's I wish there was a quick answer or a quick fix to that, but there's not. You really need to have somebody to help support you through it, understand what it is you really want, help you understand what those beliefs really are, where those came from. Is it really true? Because that's not always the case, right? There's a lot to it.
And not only that, but a divorce coach or someone like you, Michelle, is objective. So if you're listening to this and your family's saying, "But we love Jim. Why are you divorcing him? We love
Mhm.
him. He's a good guy. Maybe you guys just need marriage counseling." Well, guess what? Michelle doesn't know Jim. Her thing is to get you to be happy. And so it's almost better if the person coaching you doesn't know your spouse. Also, um, I wanna get back to this, is divorce a sin? So, if when people say, "I feel judged, my priest or my rabbi said, 'Can't you work it out?'" First of all, like Michelle said, they have your best interest at heart. They really love you, and we all know, sure, everybody wants everybody to be happily married. And when you feel like you're a disappointment, that makes things really, really hard too. Like, nobody wants to feel like a disappointment. "Well, all my sisters are still married. Why am I getting divorced?" And so, what I want to say is something I heard on a podcast, and it was the Megyn Kelly podcast. And Megyn Kelly said that when she got divorced, she felt judged, and she felt like there were these people that she calls middlemen. And middlemen in her description was like rabbis, priests, extremely religious people. And that's fine. I'm not going to tell them how to live their lives, but don't listen to the middlemen, she said. Listen to this is between you and God. And I really have a hard time believing that God, who loves us all and forgives us all, would think you were committing a sin by getting out of a toxic relationship or wanting a happier and better life. That is just not how I see it. What about
I
you, Michelle?
I 1000% agree with you, because I really believe, and I have a very, very personal relationship with God, and I do not cannot believe that he would want you to be miserable or unhappy. I even get emotional about it because it's very important
Aw,
people
it is.
understand that you matter. What is going on? I mean, you didn't just come up with this notion out of the blue that you needed to get out of this marriage.
Mhm.
You know, you're co-creating your life with God too. He's in on it. So I'm right there with you. Rules and things like that, I understand they were put in place by, for some reasons, but that rules are not what's in our heart. Our heart.
And religion and God and spirituality is so much more than going to temple or synagogue or church.
Mhm.
So, for example, I talk to God all the time. Every single morning when I wake up, I pray and talk to God. That's what I do in bed before I get up.
Right.
And I don't feel like I have to be in a synagogue to talk to God. I thank God for him for things. I thank him for, all of my beautiful people in my life, things that I have. I pray for people who are ill. And then I ask him for what I want in a
Right.
very humble way.
Right.
And you don't have to go to synagogue or a church to do that, I don't believe. And
Right.
I feel like this is between your divorce is between you and God.
Well,
And
and yeah. And I always believe there's, because of the way I approach all of this with people, I mean, even if the soon to be ex is like the worst person in the world in so many ways, or how their behaviors are and whatnot, there's always two hearts involved. Always. And really, my concern is always to help your heart get through this so there's love and compassion and you can create a better life beyond this. That's the idea of going, getting through this. Because I don't know, Jackie, you hear from so many more people, but I work with a lot of people who've been in very, very long-term marriages. So many right now are 25, 30, 35 years. And they're just so ready to have a different life, but there is this anchor of holding them back because, of course, there's still going to be the grief there. Of course, there was a time when you loved this person in a different way. I mean, you might have even liked them. And I think that's what happens. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way, but you're not meant to live in misery for the rest of your life.
you're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Is divorce a sin? That's what we're talking about today. And before we take a break, I want to say, no way. What I want you to do is ask yourself if you think God wanted you to stay in a bad marriage. Ask yourself if God is displeased because you got out of a toxic situation. And ask yourself if God is angry with you for wanting to be happy. And I bet you know the answer is absolutely God is on your side. We're going to take a short break. Oh, I forgot to say my guest is divorce coach Michelle Heffron. Michelle's a great coach who can help you during and after divorce. She's been through divorce. She is a successful business person in the past, worked in the director level, so she can help you with your professional life and your relationships as well, and obviously your divorce. Okay, we'll be right back. The year was 2011, and I had been divorced for about 3 years and was at a point in my life where I was financially struggling a little bit and needed a little extra cash. My diamond engagement ring had been sitting in a drawer for 3 years, and I felt like this was the right time to part with it. I wasn't feeling emotionally upset about having to sell it, but I didn't really feel like keeping it made any sense. I found online Matt and Ann Gable, the founders of MJ Gable Diamond and Fine Jewelry Buyers. They were located in upstate New York, and I was like, I didn't really know them, but I took a chance and I ended up selling my ring to MJ Gable. Let me tell you, it was a great experience. I trust them. They gave me such a higher amount than I thought I was going to get. And then after that, I decided they needed to be a Divorce Girl Smiling trusted professional so they can help you sell your ring. If you are looking to sell your ring, I can't think of anybody I trust more. And since 2011, they just started back then. So now they have all these other options. You can consign, you can just get a check, or you can put it in the open auction market. So if you want to learn more, go to mjgable.com. I also want to tell you about a wonderful financial advisor named Amanda Campbell. Amanda is with WealthSpire. She's been a financial advisor since 2010, but a chance encounter inspired her to specialize in helping people during divorce. Amanda had a good friend going through a divorce several years ago. That is how Amanda got into specializing in divorce. Amanda will actually hold your hand in the divorce and help you make so many decisions that need to be made, such as, should I keep the house? What do I need to live on? What decisions should I make that are most important? And how do I have the best outcome? If you want to learn more about Amanda, you can find her at wealthspire.com, and you can find both Amanda and MJ Gable in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, I'm here with divorce coach Michelle Heffron. Michelle specializes in divorce, relationships, love, and career. Michelle, I want to move on to an article that you wrote about creating what you want for your future. So I want to tell my listeners, if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, I don't even know what I want. Michelle and I understand that that's very normal. And Michelle, remember you were saying that somebody said to you, like, I don't want this and I don't want this. You know what you don't want, but you have to figure out what you want. And Michelle recently had a vision board workshop. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, oh, vision board, that's so 2010. Vision boards are awesome. And Michelle has a personal story of a vision board that she made, and like everything came true. So, Michelle, tell me about vision boards, why they work, and how they help you in love, money, and health.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. This is such a fun topic because right at the first of the year, I was out. I went over to have coffee with this very, very, very successful financial advisor I know here in my town. And I walk into her office and I look up at her wall, and there is her vision board. Okay, now she has it right in her office, and she's big wig. She's big. And I go, your vision board. She goes, oh, yeah, I always have them up here. She's always, whenever she's updating or whatever, she puts in her office. So she looks at it all day long, right? That's the idea. So many things come true. And I guess, I'll share very quickly my personal story that I shared in that article is that years ago when I went through my divorce, I literally had nothing, everyone. I mean, I literally hit rock bottom. But my coach, I had hired a coach, and she had me create one. And I needed to come up with $50,000 because I had some debt that I wanted to pay off. I always wanted to go to Paris. I never knew how I would ever get there. And then, I wanted a new job. I wanted to be able to up level my lifestyle and all these different things. And so my board included a $50,000 bill, big one. It was very big. And I cut out a picture of myself and stuck it in the middle. I put a big Eiffel Tower on there. And then I cut out a picture of me and my kids, who are adults, and, showed this woman in this really cool business suit with, this, all this stuff. And sure enough, within, 6 months, I had the $50,000, and it came to me in a way I had no idea how it would get to me. And then in 2019, so it took a little while to manifest this because I think I created that board in 2014. But in 2019, I was standing underneath the Eiffel Tower on Christmas Day with my kids. This stuff works. So you really have to start creating a vision for your future. And I do that with my clients always. It's like always, let's start with the end in mind. What do you really want in your life? And like Jackie said, they tell me a lot about what they don't want. And I'm like, we can't focus on what you don't want. We've got to focus on what you want. So we do start to create a vision of what people want in their lives. Because if you don't know what you want, you're going to get more of what you're getting, right? You really have to create what you want in your life.
Okay, now it's interesting because I think a lot of people, especially at the beginning of the divorce, don't really know what they want their post-divorce life to look like. So, in creating a vision board, they may say, "Well, I don't know what I'm gonna put on there." And I think personally, I love it because you're putting something on there. It may not turn out to be exactly what you expected, but you kinda know what you're looking for. Like, for example, when I got divorced, I knew I loved to write. So then I was like, I wrote a novel and I got a publisher and I was like, I'm gonna become the next Jennifer Weiner. I'm gonna pump out a novel a year and my life's gonna be perfect. I'm gonna be rich, famous. They're gonna make a movie of one of my books. Well, that did not happen. But I
Yet. It
knew that
didn't
I
happen
loved to
yet.
write.
It
Well,
didn't
I don't
happen.
really want that anymore. What I wanted morphed into something else. It morphed into a column in the Chicago Tribune and then into Divorce Girl Smiling, where I'm writing all the time. And so basically, I got the same dream, except for the part of being wealthy and famous. But I mean, I can earn a living now writing, doing what I love. And so, what I want to tell people is two things. If you're thinking, okay, this vision board thing sounds interesting, call Michelle. She'll do a vision board with you. And secondly, your vision board doesn't have to be exactly, you can just put whatever you love on there. And I think that if you visualize it, it gets like your creative juices flowing. And then I think there's something in it that makes you go after what you want more if you can see it on your vision board right there. I think that's how it works.
Well, and I also, because I have this, the energy of putting things out into the universe and things will come back to you is so um, real in my world. And I think even to start with, most people who are going through divorce in some way, shape, or form, the number one thing they're looking for is freedom, agency. They want something. They want a different life. They want. So there's a lot you can put on there. Even what does it mean to be free to you? What does it mean to live without somebody controlling you all the time or whatever your situation happens to be? What does it
So
look like?
maybe on your vision board, you put a townhome that you love that you want to buy. And it doesn't have to be that townhome, and you might end up in a high rise or you might end up with a single family home. You just don't know. But that might, when you said, like, what does it mean to be free? Your own home. So put a home on there.
And the other big piece of that, Jackie, is that you don't have to know how it's going to happen. So a lot of people get caught up in, well, that can't happen. Well, gosh, if you say it can't, it pretty sure won't. So you really have to think about putting out there what is actually possible. You might not think it's possible right now, but lots of stuff happens. So you
Right.
just never know. I mean, you have to actually kind of put it out there with some faith, knowing that somehow, because you can't expect exact it. You put it out there and then stuff comes back and you're going, I never even knew how I could do that. I mean, I didn't even realize I had put myself on that vision board with my kids because I put that one in a storage unit someplace. And I literally found it after that trip to Paris. I really didn't, I forgot, right?
Well,
And
and they also say reach for the moon and you might hit the stars. So, in other words, I didn't end up being Jennifer Weiner making millions, but let me tell you something. I am blissful about my job and what I do every day. I wake up every morning and cannot wait to start working. I'm making a great living. So, okay, so I didn't become the best-selling author, but I became something that I absolutely love doing what I'm doing. So just reach really high. I think that people are very afraid to aim high. And I say, aim as high as you want, and you'll get something. You may not get that high, but you'll get something close.
And you know what? A lot of it is because we're embarrassed to say what we want. And that's another thing, I help people with let's find out what that embarrassment's about. Let's figure out how do we dismantle that and let that go. Because to your point, if you're not aiming high, you're pretty much not going to go higher than what you're aiming for, right?
Right. And also, we don't feel worthy. A lot of people don't feel worthy. Think about it. Okay. So, Michelle, people in a bad marriage, your self esteem has been stomped on maybe for 5 years, 10 years, even if it's just a couple years. That's a long time. So now you're thinking, you've heard how much you can't do it so much that you really don't believe you can do it. Like, I know this woman who was married to this guy, and she would always say, and he was like very wealthy, and she didn't work, and she raised 3 kids. And she would say, I really want to go back to school and become a nurse. And he would laugh at her and say, there's no way. You're not smart enough. You never got good grades in college. You minimally got by. You're a wealthy stay-at-home mom. You could never do it. And she kept thinking to herself, like, well, maybe he's right. And then she got divorced. And guess who has been a nurse now for like 10 years? Went back to school, got her nursing degree, loves being a nurse. And she said that really her motivation was like when she finally got away from the toxicity of the marriage, she was like, you know what? I am worthy of this. I'm capable. I am smart. And I'm going to do this, even to just prove him wrong. And she did it.
And she's happy.
Extremely. So, okay. And remarried to like the nicest, greatest guy who's also wealthy, but she is choosing to work because she loves doing it so much. So, great story, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. I want to move on to the third topic I want to talk about was Michelle wrote this article, not an article, but like a little thing called The Simple Tea Pause. And it really caught my eye. And she wrote, prepare a cup of tea with intention. As you wait for it to steep, focus on the warmth of the mug, the subtle aroma wafting up, and the comfort in this small everyday ritual. What's the point of that, Michelle?
Well, I love that you brought this up because one of the things that we do is we move so fast. We're always thinking on to the next thing, on to the next thing. What has to be done? What has to be done? What has to be done? We're action, 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 action. Well, action doesn't always equal progress. In fact, it really gets in our way sometimes because it doesn't give us any time to think and to pause and to go
And
and
appreciate.
well, and appreciate, but going inside and just taking in that few moments, the most interesting, beautiful things can come to us. But if we don't ever take the time to let these things come in, we miss so much richness and beauty in our lives. And so that power of pause, and if it takes, having intention over a beautiful cup of tea, let that be like it is and just take that. So that was part of my self-care Saturdays, I believe. And these are these we can
I was
do.
just going to tell the listeners to sign up for your newsletter because she has this self-care Saturday and it gives you like ideas of what to do with your weekend and how to do something good so that you enjoy this and take these pauses. And I think, Michelle, it's so important to take a pause and do these pauses while you're getting divorced because those are the times that really there's so much stress and negativity going on that you have to take time to appreciate the little simple things.
I can't agree with you more. I think if you don't, or if you're not a people go, oh yeah, yes, they always talk about self-care. It's so important. And self-care sometimes means saying no. It might mean, no, you don't have to be the mom who does everything and does the cupcakes and everything too, because during a divorce, you're going through a lot of different things. It might mean that you don't have to make a decision about everything right now. That might be the time to take that intentional cup of tea and pause so the right next step comes to you because we're always trying to figure things out, but sometimes we don't allow for what makes most sense to just be revealed to us. And I think that was the meaning behind that post.
I love it. And I would actually call it the simple coffee pause because when I was getting divorced, I have to tell this story. My dad was like my go to. I would call him every morning. And at the time, he was like probably 80. And
Wow.
he had been married to the same woman for like 50 some years, my mom. But he for some reason just made me feel so much better, and I would call him and I would tell him my problems about my divorce every day. So one day I was talking to him and he goes, "Hey, how's your coffee?" And I go, what do you mean? How's your coffee? How does it taste?" And I go, "It's great." And he's like, "Isn't coffee just great?" So ever since then, every morning when I'm drinking my coffee, like I'll say to John, like, "This is just delicious." Like I really take time and taste the coffee because I love it so much.
I absolutely love that.
Doesn't he sound my dad was just the greatest, gave such good advice, but he caught on to the simple tea pause, Michelle. He was
I think these things are so meaningful, even if you're not going through a divorce, but especially because I think everything is magnetized for us when we go through that. There's so many big emotions, there's so many big feelings. And even to take the pause to let those things come through sometimes are important. And if it takes a cup of beautiful coffee or tea or whatever makes your heart sing, just take that time and do it, you know?
love it. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show. I loved all 3 of our topics.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. It's such a pleasure. I love it.
And if you like what you heard and you wanna have a consult with Michelle to get a vision board or talk about your divorce or get help after divorce, you can find her at michelleheffron.com. You can also find her in the trusted professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, along with other trusted vetted divorce professionals. And you can also go to Divorced Girl Smiling to listen to more podcasts, read articles, or sign up for my free consult. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.